On Christmas, in my homily, I suggested that one of the saddest lines found in Scripture was the following: there was no room for them in the inn. And I reflected on that it seems in our society today and our culture, not to be pessimistic, but reality, that there isn't much room in the inn for Jesus and many of his values. More and more, we're buying into secular values, and even to the point of, let's not put too much of Jesus into this Christmas celebration. And we reflected more too is, how can we make room in the inn for the presence of God for ourselves? What can we do to open up wide our doors to receive Jesus, and not only receive him, but to share him with others? Today's scriptures, we encounter magi from the east. We always portray them, don't we, as kings. Could be, but they were probably more astrologers or scientists of some sort at that time, very curious about the events that in the scriptures, but also in the events in the stars and different things. And so we're told they came from the east because they had seen this wonderful star that they'd never seen before rising. And they also had a little scriptural background. And they knew that there was something to do with that promise that there would be born among us some kind of an important figure, and it would be their Messiah. So this account that we just heard in the Gospel of Matthew presents us with probably another very important thought to think about from the scripture. And that is in the form of a question. Where is a newborn king of the Jews? Herod asked that question, and maybe we need to ask that question too. Where is that newborn king? Because very few days we're going to see, or maybe today, I don't know. Where are you? Next week. Okay, I got the order, sorry. But the beautiful decorations of flowers and lights are going to be taken down in our worship space, in our homes soon. And you can't wait for this. Your credit card bills will be coming due. Our family visits will be over. Our trash cans will be stuffed with wrapping paper. And our nativity scenes will be carefully packed away and put away till next Christmas time. After all this, the question will still remain, where is the one who is the reason for this season? Where is the newborn king? When Herod was asked this question by the Magi, panic set in. Herod's court and his priests and the doctors of the law hurriedly gathered together to have meetings and to get the experts in the interpretation of Scripture. There was a threat to Herod. A new king, one who was going to be more powerful than him, and so total panic arose. These three foreigners had surprised them with this strange news. The Magi related how they had seen this star, and then they began to search for that newborn who, according to them, would become the king of the Jews. So Herod became sick with panic. At the meeting of the priests and the elders, they discovered that this so-called Messiah was going to be born in a small little town of Bethlehem, a no place, a little tiny little hamlet, if you wish. Fearful, with tongue in cheek, Herod tells the Magi, well, find out where he's at, describe him a little bit, let us know exactly how he's going to be there, and so on and so forth, so I can come and do him homage. Well, that wasn't his intention. Herod was going to put him away, was going to have him killed. So what the Magi and Herod expected to find was not at all what they actually encountered. The newborn king was not found in a palace with servants and all kinds of luxuries. The newborn king instead was found in a shelter for animals, surrounded by simple parents and shepherds who tended their sheep. It became clear immediately the newborn court was different from any other that they had experienced. This king was discovered among the humbled, the overlooked, the marginalized, and the most meek. Matthew also points to the fact that Christ is discovered by the Magi off the beaten path, a small town that most people wouldn't think about twice, little Bethlehem. The most extraordinary, long-awaited Messiah was found among the most ordinary people in the most ordinary place, so ordinary that the Magi had to search, as the scripture says, diligently in order to find him. I probably narrated this before, but I've had so many beautiful experiences of having found the newborn king in very poor places. I remember being in, I may have told this, but when I was young and foolish, as a priest, I would go to, when I was living in the Los Angeles area, go into Tijuana, up into the hills. And this one occasion, it was near Christmas time, and I gathered, I don't know how he did it, but I got some kids that go out and round up people, and there was a church that was torn down. It was just no walls or anything. It was dirt inside. And I said, how long, we asked how long a mass had been there, and they hadn't had one. And so I said, well, I've got the host, I got wine, maybe we can do a mass here. Well, the kids went off and started letting the people know. And by the end of the afternoon, we had gathered about 300 people. And they brought their own chairs. And it was a little rickety table and some dried up flowers. And yet the newborn king was there in a very humble place. Remember the first mass that I did in El Salvador underneath the covering of a school with a little rickety old table, no vestments. I had no vestments. Right? We had to improvise 100 different things to make it even possible. And yet in that poor place, the king was born, lived there, and was amongst us. And I think we can think of that over and over in our lives, how often we'll find God not in the palace, but in the simpleness of our life. Today's Feast of the Epiphany ought to remind us that we don't have to look for Jesus in some exotic place like St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. We can find Jesus in a small community right here in Southwest Michigan, where ordinary men and women gather at worship at Our Lady of the Lake and at St. Anne parishes. At the Eucharistic celebration that we share together, we encounter Jesus in an intimate union when we receive him in humble wafers and simple wine, which we believe becomes the body and blood of Christ, Emmanuel, God with us. And Matthew also reminds us today that even amid the darkness, that thread on his life, on the journey that they had to take, Christ is discovered where there is light, the light of the star. A star guided the way for the Magi, where the new king was to be found. The light we were given at baptism can guide us to the Lord. It may appear very difficult to follow that light in a world so often overwhelmed with shadows and darkness, violence, threats of war. But look at where the Magi found the Son of God, in a forgotten corner of the world, among simple people, under a light. Where is Christ? Follow the light, would be the instruction. Where do we find the newborn king of the Jews? Herod's answer to the Magi still speaks to us. Search diligently. Mother Teresa once famously said that Christ can often be found in distressing disguises. Distressing disguises. She goes on to say, see the Lord in a child hungering for a warm meal or a warm home. He or she may be found among those who are not near the centers of power. the elderly who have been forgotten, or the sick who have been neglected, or the weary and battered who feel alone and misunderstood, the refugee, the one seeking to avoid war. God is the refuge. God is in that refugee fleeing poverty and violence. The Lord is the homeless one seeking shelter and work. Emmanuel, God is with us. We only need to look around.